Which night Dennis could not sleep. A lot of thoughts flew through my head and breaking off in half sank into my head. It was incredibly difficult to concentrate on sleep that night. Everywhere, he saw the outlines of people and there was only anxiety in his chest, which he could not calm down. Having made up his mind, he listlessly got out of bed and went to his desk. In the dark, it was difficult to make out what and where he had left during the day. But after unsuccessfully rummaging in 2 drawers from above, he still found what he was looking for in the third. It was a pack of Finesse Pam, which the guy used almost every night. This time, too, he had to resort to pills, although he hoped that on this particular day he would be able to fall asleep without them. Having squeezed out the pill with difficulty, Dennis casually threw the pack on the table and trudged wearily to bed. Spread out on his side, he finally began to fall asleep. His thoughts were no longer bothering him. There were no patterns on the walls, and now he could fall asleep again, wrapped in a blanket. There was a rattle of keys in the lock from the corridor, and after a few seconds, the front door was unlocked. The stranger's heavy footsteps pulled Dennis out of Morpheus' arms, and, opening his eyes, he realized with horror that someone unknown was walking around his apartment. Sighing like a tuberculosis patient, the stranger headed for the kitchen. There was a click of the kettle, which notified about its inclusion, and after a few seconds, you could hear the buzzing of a rusty faucet. Heavy footsteps were heard from the kitchen, and passing Dennis's room, the stranger entered the bathroom. Only then did the guide come to his senses. Getting out of bed, Dennis slowly walked to the door and carefully opened it. The apartment was pitch dark, even in the toilet where the stranger entered. It was as quiet there as it had been before his visit. Having made up his mind, Dennis, trying not to make a single sound, walked to the front door, which was 6 steps from the room. All this time, he did not leave the feeling of observation, and trying to see at least something, he was constantly on the verge of falling to the floor. The briefcase got under his feet, almost knocking the guy off balance. It's unclear where the bedside table came from hit him on the little finger, almost making Dennis mumble in pain. All his movements were clumsy, and turning off the light only made the situation worse. Walking towards the door, he collided with a wall. The rug that had been lying in front of the door was now lying in front of the wall. Panic began to build up in the body and the former drowsiness was removed by hand. After thinking a little, the guy rushed to his room as fast as he could, but he also failed to find the door. Running his hand along the walls, Dennis no longer controlled himself. The door to the toilet began to open slowly. Pulling himself together, the guy ran the direction of the kitchen. After hitting himself several times, he still ran and tried to find the switch that had previously been at the door, and he succeeded. A dim lamp illuminated the old-fashioned kitchen. There were old bars on the only window. There wouldn't have been enough time to escape. Opening drawer after drawer in excitement, Dennis found a kitchen knife and froze, swinging and as if about to strike an invisible enemy. The door was silently staring at him, and footsteps could be heard approaching from the corridor. Someone was approaching the kitchen, breathing hoarsely, and so stopping at the door, the stranger, still wheezing, did not make any sounds. The knock of the kitchen clock, the beating of the heart, the wheezing outside the door, it swung open. The door swung open, and a dimly lit body under 2 meters could be seen in the doorway. It was something that looked like a man, but completely naked. The whole face of the creature had a hole as black as an abyss, in which it was impossible to find either eyes, mouth, or nose. The whole body was covered with hairs sticking out in different places and cheekbones. It was unnatural. The arms and legs were longer than almost all of Dennis. There were no hands. There were only rectangular arms, at the ends of which there were triangular claws. The legs were the same as the hands. Something screamed with such volume that Dennis had to plug his ears in order not to go deaf, and rushed to the guy. Without thinking twice, he struck the creature, which was a step away from him, right on the chest, which made it stop and roar again. Flooding his ears, the guy slipped on a stream of black liquid flowing from the creature's wound and fell to the floor, dropping the knife. The creature, having stopped screaming, grabbed the falling Dennis with one jerk and, like a toy, decided to throw him against the wall. Without thinking for a second, he looked around and with difficulty took the already hot kettle in his hand. Instantly, he tilted it to the enemy's face, and the boiling water jet flew straight into the creature's hole. With a deafening roar, she threw Dennis right out of the window with incredible force, and he, no longer understanding anything, met the old bars with his back. There were a lot of distinct crunches all over the body, and the guide flew out together with the obstacles that were once for him right into the street. The snow softened the fall somewhat, but the wild pain all over my body still reminded me of myself. The whole world was shrouded in darkness,